Hey Brickmaniacs, welcome back to another Designer's Desk episode here on Brickmania TV. Dan is joining me this week, and we have probably the most fearsome, the most deadly model that Brickmania has ever created here to talk about right now.
Yep,
the Bob Semple Tank.
The Bob Semple Tank. So, for those who know your history, plug your ears, I'm going to tell it to you anyways. So, during World War II, the New Zealand, being part of the British Empire, had sent all their troops and all their equipment all to fight in Europe, in France, and then later in North Africa, all in 1940, blah, blah, blah. This all happened. So in New Zealand, the home islands, there really wasn't much left. There was no equipment, no armor. And when Japan entered the war in 1941, 1942, there was a real fear in New Zealand that Japan would invade New Zealand, and they had no heavy equipment, no heavy weapons. They had some guns, but they didn't have any tanks.
Pretty much horses and men.
Even the men. Most of the men were actually in North Africa at the time, fighting the Germans. So the Bob Semple, he was the Minister
of Works.
Minister of Works, basically like the guy in charge of building things for New Zealand. He came up with an idea based on a postcard that they had advertising a kit to make a tank out of a Caterpillar bulldozer. Right, and they're like, hey, we've got Caterpillar bulldozers. They couldn't order the kits because those were coming from the United States, but they decided that we can use whatever we have in stock in New Zealand, our own homegrown industry, to make tanks. We had 80-something bulldozers the government owned, and they're like, we're going to do this. So,
and this is the result. And didn't they originally in the design team, weren't they like, we want a 20 millimeter, the same gun that was going to be on this
37 millimeter.
37 millimeter.
So the standard anti-tank gun at the time was the 37 millimeter. The British, I think it was the 2-pounder. Okay. And then the American M3. It was just, that was the accepted anti-tank gun. They assumed they'd be able to get some eventually, so they did make a turreted tank with the idea that gun would be on top. Okay. Never did get them in time. Yeah, didn't get any because all the supplies were diverted to more urgent things like the Battle of Guadalcanal, things like that. So. They did end up, in fact, make 3 of these tanks. They went to the shop and wherever their workshop or they could whatever they could get, and they started welding together these bodies. So basically, they just take a crane and lower this tank shell over the top of the bulldozer, and then you have the Bob Semple tank. So, wow! And it was basically a box on top of a bulldozer bristling with machine guns.
Right? Wasn't the crew is like between 6 and 9 people or something?
Yeah, because everybody there's like you have, if you look at it, you look at all these guns. There's 5 in the hull and a 6th up on top in that turret. Each one is manned by a person, of course. The actual tank, as the rivet counters will tell you, had Bren guns because that's all the guns that they had. I do not have Bren guns on here. I have these are the barrels from the Vickers gun because they actually look more like the little armored covers that they'd made for the Bren guns. I mean, we could have just stuck Bren guns in here. The only problem is I wouldn't have been able to stick one in the turret very well. So the turret does rotate like it should. We do have this one opening hatch, which in case of a fire, all 7 to 9 guys have to come out. I think there's another hatch in front. This little thing could open forward, but due to limitations on Lego, I couldn't do that. So, yeah, I don't know. It's got this great camouflage. The actual tank would be green, but there's just not, these pieces just aren't available in green.
Sure, so, got to work with what you have. Well, and I like the two-tone color scheme too, because it just kind of fits the idea of a Bob Semple. Is like you just kind of expect to see it in like this thrown together colors of whatever we have laying around, we're going to use for armor.
Yeah, they that's exactly what they did. So it looks like corrugation. It's actually not. What they did is they took hardened angle irons and welded them in rows. So it did give sort of an angled armor, but that wasn't the property they're looking for. It was because it was hardened steel. They didn't have like sheets of armor laying around. You can't just like throw some boilerplate on the side of something and expect it to be
armor.
Yeah, because that's soft metal. You need something hardened. So they were actually welding on these angle irons to get this sort of makeshift armor on there. So it was soft metal underneath it with the angle irons welded on top of it. So
very, very cool. Yeah, you show off the interior.
Yeah, I did not. We could have done is made a bulldozer and then stick the top of it on it. It would have increased the price drastically. So it's just sort of simulated. The roof does come off. You can yank that turret off. You can see that there is sort of a Bulldozer. You can detail it. You can put the levers and the seat in there.
Yeah.
We have made a Caterpillar D8 bulldozer before. You can look at the pictures, see how it goes. You can put the engine in it if you want. So in the real thing, there was actually a mattress that they threw on top of that hood there. So the guy shooting the center machine gun would have to lay on top of the engine like some old rusty or crusty mattress. So I'm not saying that necessarily the mattress had to be old and crusty.
The epicness of the Bob Semple
just
Tank
thinking
knows
like,
no bounds.
yeah. So we made 50 of these bad boys.
Correct.
Limited edition. It was going to be our April Fool's joke. The April Fool's is actually on the people who didn't believe we were going to do it. So
yeah, right.
It did sell out in pre-order. We did have a couple set aside for stores. With the Chicago store being shut down due to the shelter in place order, we have a couple that were destined for Chicago. Will end up on our store. I imagine by the time you read this, they'll be up and maybe even gone.
Yeah, right. Only a couple of them to put on there.
Right, and we only did make one batch. There's no more in the pipeline plan. If there's enough outcry, maybe we'll make some later. But
it could be a fan pull favorite. We'll kind of see moving forward. But right now, it is.
Yeah, it was never intended to be more than the 50.
Well, let's talk about this awesome minifigure with the lemon squeezer hat.
The lemon squeezer, yeah. So you do get a minifigure. I believe it comes with the SMLE rifle too. Custom 3D printed hat there. That is our 3D print team did the orange line did a fantastic job making that. So there's actually two pieces there. There's the hat, and then that little red band around there. It's actually a rubber band. It's a separate piece. Don't try to pull it off because you don't want to damage it.
Yeah, sure.
We went through great pains to get that rubber band on there and dye it red. It's just the tiniest little thing. The uniform on the guy, this is actually a new figure we've never done before. So this is a British pattern World War I a set of harnesses on here.
Because it was so early into World War II, that's what they would have had.
Right. Any more modern stuff would have been actually in Europe and in North Africa with the troops. The Home Guard would have been in New Zealand would have had whatever was left over, whatever was left behind, and it happened to be World War I pattern stuff. So this is what your New Zealand defenders would be wearing in case of a Japanese invasion actually happened.
Or for your parade through the capital.
So as history happened, the U.S. Marines actually landed on New Zealand on their way and either to or from Guadalcanal, so the South Pacific. So the idea that New Zealand was undefended and all that stuff, it didn't last very long as the Japanese were stopped short of getting to New Zealand.
But if they had made it, they would have had to face the fearsome Bob Semple Tank.
Yeah, it would have been a bloodbath.
That would have been interesting to see how the mobile defense pillbox would have fared against the might of
that's not a historical term. I made that up. So.
Well, it fits. It definitely fits. So it looks cool. Cool. Anything else you want to go over on this model?
No, that's it. I mean, it's fun. It was fun to do and something we've been teasing you guys for a long time, like the mouse, and we finally did it. So here it is. If you're going to be one of the lucky few. Congratulations.
Yeah, make sure you post that bad boy on social media and let us know how you're going to utilize your Bob Semple tank build. Well, cool, Dan. Thank you very much for talking me through this, and thank you very much for watching.